Now I wanted to show you how to shell an object. So I have a mesh that I've prepared. It's fully enclosed, and it's really important if you're using the mesh doctor, for instance. It's really important that the highly creased edges are taken care of, that you don't have any issues with those. Generally, highly creased areas would be around edges, and it basically denotes very sharp transition between one face and the other. Those areas can give you problems when it comes to shelling. So assuming that I don't have any problems with my mesh, I'm ready to shell this. And shelling takes place over here. So if I start my shell command, you'll notice that I have a preview of an arrow. The arrow is pointing outwards. So right now, if I were to apply the shell, it would apply the shell on the outside of my original object. I actually want it to be on the inside. So I'm going to put a negative in front of that value. And when I apply it again, the shell is now going inside. I want to quickly show you what uniform does, or why you wouldn't want to use uniform. You can see that there's this orange area out here, and that's actually showing me an area where the shell is actually offsetting in the wrong direction, and it's breaking through the outside of this object. The best way to see that is to go to your display and then turn on the clipping view, and just move it so that you start to see where that problem is. And just zoom in here, and yeah, you can clearly see that the inside of the shell extends beyond the outer mesh area, and it creates that problem there. So I tend to not use the uniform setting. I prefer the smooth. It's a little bit more generous, and it tends to give good results. I rarely have any issues with the inside mesh going through the outside one. So then what I would do is assuming that that value is good, and keep in mind that this is a real world value. So this is in inches. This is 0.4 inches. That's a very thick wall if I was going to prototype this with a 3D printer. I typically don't need more than maybe an eighth of an inch, a tenth of an inch for that matter. So I would definitely change this value to reflect a real world size. But I'm just going to leave it at a larger number so you can see more clearly what's going on. And at this point, I would literally just move that clipping plane through, and I would look from different directions just to make sure that everything is the way I expect it to be. I don't have any glaring problems anywhere. I might even rotate this view and look at it from another direction, and again apply my clipping plane, reset it to that new view, and just pay particular attention. It should be a consistent offset throughout. So that looks good. I'm going to click OK. So I've got my smooth turned on. OK. And now I'm ready to export this. There's no feature in here for exporting per se, so I simply save it, and I'm going to save this as an STL file. Binary is a little bit smaller. And now I just want to take a look at it in Rhino. So I'm going to import that. And the option that comes up here, it's really important that you have split disjoint meshes applied, checked. If you don't, you won't be able to select the inside mesh from the outside mesh, and it'll be a nightmare to work with. So just make sure that that's enabled. Click OK. And here I have the geometry. If I applied a clipping plane, I can now clearly see that distinction between one and the other. And I have, this is in Rhino 5, so you guys are still working on 4, but there are options in 4 for making back faces visible. You have to go into your settings to change that, but it's quite helpful when it comes to meshes to be able to see the front, which is gray colored, from the back side, which is red in both these cases. I can now select either one of these meshes, and I'm just going to drag one away so you can see more clearly what's going on. This looks a little bit funky because the mesh is actually reversed. The normals of the mesh are reversed. So if I just click on Analyze Direction and then click once to change the direction, I can now see the front and back side, or the front side of the mesh. So this is the inner shell of the mesh, and at that point I would sort of keep them together and probably bore out a hole, or depending on what I'm doing with this, I now have access to a shelled object in Rhino. So thanks for watching.